Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then, the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Colleen, and let's just get into some weird stuff. So I thought today we would talk about some weird tattoo facts. I have a bunch of tattoos, and I also worked at a tattoo shop for a little bit a year or so ago, and I thought that this would be something kind of fun that we could go over and something we haven't talked about before on this show. So let's get into some weird facts. Let's start out with some historical facts. So let's start off with the oldest known tattooed human. So the oldest known tattooed human skin, like to date, was found on the body of what they call Otzi, O-T-Z-I, the Iceman. And that's estimated to be between 3,370 and 3,100 BC. And he's said to have 61 tattoos of different dots and symbols and stuff all over the body that they found. Now, let's keep on this theme of historical facts and go on to the first electric tattoo machine. So the first electric tattoo machine was invented by Samuel O'Reilly in 1891. It's kind of crazy to see these historical facts because it kind of puts in perspective how long this kind of thing has been going on for, and just, it's kind of mind-blowing. I thought that I'd at least put some historical facts in here so you guys could understand the length of how long tattooing has been a thing, which is crazy in and of itself. Now let's talk about some percentages. So apparently, only 5% of Americans have had a tattoo covered by another tattoo. And I feel like this has to be a lie. I have 3 cover-ups, I would say. Or I guess if you're counting the tattoos that are covered, I have 5 cover-ups. I made some bad decisions when I was younger and just that kind of thing, and it's better to just cover it with a new beautiful piece of art than to leave it there and kind of not like the way that you're feeling. So, am I a big percentage of this 5% of Americans who've had tattoos covered? Like, I mean... I honestly think it's so popular nowadays just to be able to cover it with something else, and I've seen a lot of tattoo artists themselves who do a lot of covering upon covering upon covering just because they want to change their look up. And I mean, to each your own. If you want to keep doing that, like, good for you. But I feel like that 5% number is not as accurate as I would think it to be. Now, speaking of percentages, let's talk about the percentage of women and men. So apparently 58% of women have at least one tattoo, while only around 41% of men have at least one. They say that just women are more likely to get a tattoo, which is kind of interesting to think about, than a man. But it's also said that women are twice as likely to get their tattoos removed than men are. So I guess women are more likely to jump the gun when it comes to getting a tattoo and then being like, maybe I don't like this, and then getting it removed. I don't know. Let me know if you guys have ever, if you guys have any tattoos, or if you don't, or, you know, if you've ever got one removed or covered up. I'd love to know. Honestly, I would just love to know. I have never gotten a tattoo removed, but like I said just a minute ago, that I have covered up And I don't feel like getting removal is for me personally. But I know that a lot of people do get tattoos removed, and that's to each your own. I have no quarrel with you do one way or another. I almost got tattoos removed, and then I decided against it because when I went and talked to a few people, they said with my skin that it would scar really badly, and I really didn't want that. I'll talk more about my stuff when it comes to tattoos, probably at the end of this podcast, but let's move on to some more facts. Let's talk about misspelled words. So apparently tattoo is one of the most misspelled words in the English language. Usually spelt T-A-T-O instead of T-A-T-T-O-O. I can see how this is a thing. I really can. When you think tattoo, you're not thinking two T's, two O's, that kind of thing. You're kind of thinking just in the sense of tattoo. I don't know. I know that I've misspelled it a few times, but I don't really misspell it that much anymore since I worked at a shop, and it was kind of like something I had to write all the time. So, I don't know, but I can definitely see how that's something that's one of the most misspelled words compared to any other word in the English language. So I found this fact, and I thought it to be really, really interesting because I had no idea. So apparently tattooing was illegal in South Carolina until 2004. And it was also illegal in Oklahoma until 2006. Honestly, like when you look at it now, it's kind of a long time ago. It doesn't feel like a long time ago for me. But I think that it's interesting. It's interesting to think that it was only in 2004 when it became legal in South Carolina and 2006 in Oklahoma. That's just something you don't think about. You kind of think, oh, it's always kind of been a thing, especially when you hear of our oldest tattooed human skin and our first electric tattoo machine being so far back in the past that you wouldn't really think, oh, it was illegal in the 2000s to get a tattoo in these specific states. I thought that was really interesting. I don't know. I was not getting tattoos in 2004 and 2006, but I definitely think that's pretty interesting. I don't know. It's weird. Before I keep rambling on about how weird it was that you couldn't get a tattoo until 2004, 2006 in these places, let's move on to somebody named Kimberly Smith. So Kimberly Smith tattooed goldenpalace.com on her forehead in 2005 to pay for her son's tuition, making her the first person to have an advertisement tattooed. Now you kind of see those everywhere. This is actually a really popular thing that a lot of people don't think about, is these advertisement tattoos. And they're really to kind of boost a company's, advertisement. Like, that's what it is. It's advertising, but instead of on a billboard or on a commercial or on the radio or something like that, it's on human skin. It's on somebody walking around where people can see it. Now, I don't know if this was the best choice for our friend Kimberly over here, who got goldenpalace.com tattooed on her forehead. But I guess she made enough money to pay for her son's tuition, which is really what she was going for in the first place, so good on her. I would never do this. I don't know how I feel about advertising for somebody on your own body. Technically, I kind of have a tattoo that could be considered that, but I'm not getting paid for it. I'll explain that a little later. But I really think that this is it's a very interesting thing. And a lot of times the place will actually pay for the tattoo. So it's not like you can go to a good artist. It's not like you can go to just some Joe Schmo that you've, never really looked into and like, I would like Golden Palace, please. But it's just, they'll pay for it and that's cool and all, but you just got to remember this is on your skin permanently. I don't know if Kimberly got hers removed. That would be super painful in the first place, but I mean, or if she's just living her life with goldenpalace.com on her forehead. Maybe she got bangs. I don't know. But it's interesting that it was 2005 when she got this tattoo. So she was the first person to have an advertisement tattoo, and now it's pretty popular. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to talk about some more weird tattoo facts.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Now, before the break, we were talking about weird tattoo facts, and that's the theme of this entire podcast, is just weird tattoo facts. We talked about some historical facts, some percentage facts. Now, let's move on to some more weird facts. Let's start off with a Guinness World Record fact. So apparently musician Tommy Lee set a world record of becoming the first man to be tattooed mid-air. So he was tattooed on a plane. And that was in 2007. So he broke a Guinness Book of World Records for being the first person to ever be tattooed mid-air or on a plane. Now, since then, I know that there are a lot of people who have been. I don't know if I would. That just sounds unpleasant. But there you go. Now let's talk about another record. So the record for the longest tattoo session is 56 hours and 30 minutes. That is so long. Artist, okay, I'm going to butcher his name, just letting you know now. Krzysztof, Krzystzof. Barnas finished 11 tattoos and was only allowed 5 minutes after every hour to rest. This sounds so tiring. He must have been so tired after this. I mean, come on. That's 56 hours, excuse me. That's 56 hours that and 30 minutes that he tattooed for while tattooing 11 tattoos with only a 5-minute break after every hour. He must have been so exhausted. I also don't know, if that actually, started to show in his work that he was so tired after 56 hours of tattooing. He must have been just exhausted, and I feel like his work wouldn't be as good towards the end because he's so tired. I don't know. That's way too long. I hope he was doing it specifically to set this record because that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what else to say about that. That's absolutely ridiculous. Ooh, I've sat pretty long for tattoos, and I've known people who've sat very long for tattoos, but I couldn't imagine being the artist having to sit for that long, because I know that even after, however many hours of tattooing, the artist is pretty tired too. So, I mean, they're doing all the work, you're just sitting there. So I don't know, that's ridiculous to me. Let's move on to another percentage. So apparently 23% of people regret their tattoos, with the biggest regret, tattoo-wise, being names. Now, I can see this. I've had a few tattoos that I've regretted. I got a lot of tattoos before I was of the age of tattooing, which I am now an advocate for getting tattooed correctly when you're the right age, all that kind of thing. Anyway, I'll talk more about that towards the end, but I can see that this is a correct number, and with the biggest regret being names. Now, I feel like it's names and matching tattoos, not just names, but I don't know. I don't have a single name tattooed on me. No, you know what? I kind of do. but it's not something significant to an actual person. If that, I don't know, I'll explain it later. But I don't have the courage, I guess, to do that. I don't have the courage to be like, yeah, I'm going to get your name tattooed on me. I don't know. It's just, that's too much for me. But let's move on. So this one I found super interesting. Apparently government jobs have the most tolerant tattoo policies, but only 8% of the government employees actually have them. I don't know. I think that's really interesting because I've been in a lot of jobs and whatnot that you got to cover your tattoos, you can't show them or this and that. And it's interesting that like higher up in government jobs, they're more tolerant of this. They're not as, conservative, I guess, when it comes to, covering things or taking piercings out. We're not talking about piercings today. We're talking about tattoos, but I think that goes along the same line as, the policies and whatnot when it comes to tattooing, because they kind of go hand in hand in that sense when it comes job-wise to tattoo and piercing wise, if that makes sense. I'm rambling. Let's move on. So this one I saw, and it doesn't surprise me in the least. Wow, we are just starting off and I am losing my words. Hey, we're in for a treat today. Let's talk about money. So apparently Americans spend $1.65 billion on tattoos annually. And that does not surprise me in the slightest, like not at all, because tattoos are not cheap, and you shouldn't try and get a cheap tattoo because you don't have the money and you really want a tattoo. You really should go for something a little bit, Tattoos aren't cheap. The work's not cheap. You're paying for the labor. You're paying for them drawing out all your stuff and all that kind of stuff. You're paying for the ink and the machine, all that kind of stuff. You're paying for that. And you should. But so I'm not surprised that apparently Americans spend $1.65 billion a year. That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. That sounds probably right, if not low. I don't know. I don't know. It just seems, it seems correct. Now let's move on to our vegan friends. So I just wanted to put this in here because if you are vegan and you're listening to this, this is kind of something you might want to keep in mind. Most tattoo inks are actually not vegan and have some sort of animal byproduct in them. I just wanted to put that out there because this is a thing. And I know that there are vegan inks now, and a lot of places actually use those just because they're better. But just if you're vegan and this is a thing that you really want, you don't want to have any sort of animal byproduct or anything of the sort in your ink that's in your tattoo, you should ask questions, talk to your tattoo artist, kind of look into it, because there is a possibility that the tattoos you have are not vegan. I just wanted to put that in there because it is, this is a thing and it's not something that everybody talks about. It honestly is just a little bit weird. It honestly is a little weird, but I think that it's important for everyone to kind of know. Just so you know that, your ink in your tattoo is not vegan. Now, I personally don't care about that for myself, but I do know that a lot of people do care what's going into their body, and this is going into your body. And if you're vegan and you feel like this is not in alliance with your values, you should look into the possibility of a different type of ink. Most of the time, if you sit down and you talk to your tattoo artist and you're like, hey, I really want to make sure that the ink that you're using or that you're going to use for me is going to be vegan, they can look into it and see whether what they are using is vegan, or if not, if they can get their hands on something that will be vegan specifically for you. It's okay to ask questions. That's a big thing. It's okay to ask questions, and when it comes to this, I really think that you should, because if it's not aligning up with your morals and you just feel wrong getting, ink in your body that's not vegan, then you should ask questions and you should talk to somebody about this. I just thought I'd put that in there. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some more weird tattoo facts.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Now, before the break, we were talking about weird tattoo facts. We talked about some record-breaking facts, we talked about some percentage facts, and we also talked about the fact that some tattoo ink isn't vegan. Now, let's move on to some other tattoo facts. So, this one is really interesting to me, and I know something that, majority of people would not do in this day and age. But apparently, after social security cards were first issued in 1936, men and women, all sorts of people, tattooed their social security number on their arms. This is something that would not 100%, 100 million, billion, fillion, whatever number percent would not fly in this day and age. Because, people can steal your identity, and that's a thing. For real, it's a thing. And so, I just found it really interesting that that's what people did when they were originally issued their, very first social security cards, was get their number tattooed on their arm so they wouldn't forget it. Very interesting. I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Let's move on to one that I found absolutely phenomenal. So there's a tattoo artist named Vinnie Myers, or Myers, Myers. I don't know how to pronounce things. But Vinnie creates 3D nipple tattoos for breast cancer survivors. I've seen stuff like this, and I think this stuff is so great. I love the fact that Vinnie Myers, or Vinnie Myers, or however you pronounce Vinny's name, does this. I think this is phenomenal and can really give a confident boost to anybody who, might need this, and anybody who survived breast cancer and all that kind of stuff. Really, really inspiring, and I love when I see this kind of stuff in any sort of medium of art at all. And I really appreciate this. I've seen a lot of tattoos where people will get, when they've had a breast removed, they will get tattoos over the scars and all of this. But I really like the idea of getting a nipple re-tattooed on. It's still there. It's not gone. It's still there kind of thing. Love it, love it, love it. This is probably one of the nicest things that I've seen in my research of all these weird tattoo facts. Now let's move on to most popular tattoos. There are so many tattoos that are just super high in popularity that you see on everyone. You see butterflies and infinity symbols and skylines and that kind of thing. Things that are just super, super, super popular to get tattooed. I mean, everybody likes those things. I mean, not everybody, but you know what I'm saying. They're just a very popular thing, and people like the way they look on some people, and they're like, I want that too, and so that's how it goes. But apparently, the most popular tattoos are actually angels and hearts, which I can see. When I worked at the tattoo shop that I worked at for a bit, there were a lot of people who came in looking for angels or praying hands with angels or anything like that. And then a lot of hearts I can see as well. I feel like I didn't see as many hearts. I feel like maybe not so much nowadays, but I feel like nautical stars were super, super popular and more popular than hearts. But I guess I didn't really look into it when it comes to hearts versus other things. But apparently, according to every place that I did research, those are the two most popular tattoos is angels and hearts. Let me know if you guys have an angel or a heart tattooed on you. I actually don't have either. I don't have either on me, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts or see your guys' tattoos, or let me know what you guys think when it comes to tattoos. I am always on the Twitter at GSMC_weird news, and also on the Facebook GSMC weird news. I'm always there. Love to see your guys' stuff. Let me know if you guys have any weird tattoo facts that I don't end up talking about in this podcast, or tattoo experiences you've had, or tattoos you have that you love or you hate, or why not you get them. I'd love to hear that, so hit me up on the at GSMC_weird news Twitter or the GSMC weird news Facebook page. I'm always there. Love to talk to you guys. Now let's move on to another tattoo fact. So this one is not so much tattoos, but as it is temporary tattoos. But I found this really, really interesting. So the FDA recently warned that temporary tattoos made with black henna ink that contain, I'm going to butcher this, phenylidimine. I'm going to spell this for you and it's going to be a doozy. Hold on. So it's P-A-R-A hyphen P-H-E-N-Y L-E-N-E-D-I-A-M-I-E, or PDD. That's what we're going to call it, PDD, which is a coal tar product that's used in hair dyes. And they're warning about this specific type of temporary tattoo because it can cause permanent scarring. And I know that a lot of people love to do henna tattoos. I know that it's really popular to do like henna freckles and stuff like that nowadays, but I want to I just thought I would really throw this in here, because if you're going to get a henna tattoo or anything like that, maybe look into the ingredients and make sure that this is not in there, because this could be permanently scarring, and then maybe you'll go get a tattoo to cover it up. But I mean this can be potentially very, very dangerous, and I thought I would just kind of throw that in there as a little extra fact so you guys knew, because I had no idea. I've done henna tattoos before because they're so much fun, or you're at some sort of event or something like that where they're doing it, and they're fun because they stay for a while but then they go away. And I actually had no idea that this was a thing, and now it's kind of nice to know, so I'll be a little bit more wary when it comes to any sort of temporary tattoo. So let's move on to something that's very controversial. And this is copying someone's tattoo, like verbatim. So if you go into a tattoo shop and you're showing them a picture of somebody else's tattoo that you really like, they're not going to give you the exact tattoo in the photo that you gave them, because copying someone's tattoo is considered unethical, because you're taking somebody else's work that they made specifically for this person and putting it on somebody else's body. It's just not a good thing to do. So if you're going to go in to get a tattoo, this is my recommendation. You can take pictures of other people's tattoos, but don't ask for the exact same thing, because it's not okay. It just isn't. That's how it goes. So just bring in things that you like, and they'll tailor something specifically to you. I mean, it's nice to, everybody should have something that's very special to themselves. And this is something that I see a lot of, which is people copying other people's tattoos. And I don't think it's a good thing. And a lot of people in the industry themselves will not do it because it's unethical. So just remember, you can bring in all different types of stuff, and a good tattoo artist will make it special and customized to you specifically, so you're the only person who has it. 100%, That's what it is. I just wanted to put this in here because this is something I see a lot, and a lot that people online kind of talk about, because they're like, hey, this person copied my tattoo and blah, blah, blah. And some people are like, oh, that's a form of flattery. It is, but it's also something that this artist made specifically for that person, and you're just kind of ripping them off. Just letting you know. I mean, there are a lot of tattoos that are verbatim the exact, no matter what you do, but just letting you know that this is a thing, and to bring in a lot of different stuff when you go get a tattoo. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to talk about some more weird tattoo facts.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Now, before the break, we were talking about weird tattoo facts. I mean, this entire podcast, we've been talking about weird tattoo facts. But we just talked about some of the most popular tattoos, the FDA warning about some temporary tattoo inks, and the issues with copying someone's tattoo. Now, let's move on to some presidents. Surprise, surprise. These actually really surprised me. I had no idea. But apparently, President Theodore Roosevelt, excuse me, I'm stumbling all over, but Theodore Roosevelt had his family crest tattooed on his chest. I had no idea that any of the United States presidents had tattoos. But apparently, also President Jackson and Polk had small hidden tattoos on them as well. I had no idea. This is kind of cool. Honestly, I can understand it's like, it was taboo. It's still taboo. I don't know why at this point, but it's really cool to know that there were United States presidents who had tattoos on them. I don't know. I found this like super weird and interesting because I'd never heard of it before. But let's move on to some old Egyptian things. Let's talk about one of the oldest recorded tattoo ink recipes. So this is what they used for the ink for the tattoos. So it's only one of the oldest, not the oldest, but one of the oldest recorded tattoo ink recipes consisted of Egyptian pine bark, corroded bronze, vinegar, vitriol, leek juice, and insect eggs. Definitely everything I've ever wanted inside of my skin. Ugh. It's kind of creepy, but I mean, that's what they did, and obviously, you know, it worked for them, but that's going to be a no from me. Just saying. I don't know, I found this interesting because you don't really think about, like, recipes of ink that people were using way back in the day. You're just like, oh, it was ink. Not thinking about what went into it or what didn't go into it. So I don't know. I found that really interesting. Let's go and move on over to Hawaii. Apparently, Queen Kamamalu, Kamamalu, of Hawaii was the first person to ever get a tongue tattoo. And apparently she did this out of grief for her passing mother. I couldn't find a lot else. But I found this really interesting, and I'm noticing a trend in a lot of these tattoo facts, with a lot of them having to do with women. Go you. Women power. Let me tell you. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to another woman. And let's talk about beauty pageants. So the first beauty pageant featured Betty Broadbent, who had over 565 tattoos. Nowadays, I honestly don't think I've seen a single beauty pageant, beauty queen, beauty, whatever you call it, with a tattoo. At least a visible one that you could see. To my knowledge, I don't watch a lot of beauty pageant things, but I've never seen or heard of really anybody that was just covered head to toe in tattoos being, a beauty queen, beauty pageant contestant, whatever you call them. So I found this really interesting that the first beauty pageant featured this woman with 565 tattoos. Go her. Go Betty Broadbent. Do you? That's great. I don't know. I found that really interesting since it's not something that you see so much nowadays, which is odd because you would think that in the past it was more taboo to have a tattoo. Taboo to have a tattoo. Sorry, that's just fun to say. Now, let's move on to a person with a very interesting name. So, this person's name is Lucky Diamond Rich. I kid you not, their name is Lucky Diamond Rich. But our friend Lucky Rich here is the most tattooed person in the world, and he has lighter tattoos over his darker tattoos, literally because he ran out of space on his body. His body is so covered in tattoos, and he wanted more tattoos, that he took tattoos and tattooed tattoos on top of tattoos, if that makes sense. So Lucky Diamond Rich is the most tattooed person in the world. This seems to change actually quite often, who is the most tattooed person in the world, because everybody's, competing at this point, I guess. But he's the most tattooed person in the world, and he's tattooing tattoos on top of tattoos, because he literally ran out of space on his body. I found this so funny and kind of interesting, because he's like, I want more tattoos. I've got zero space. Well, we could make a little tattoo on top of that one tattoo, and it's not like covering tattoos. It seems like it's just a tattoo, but on top of another tattoo. I don't know. It's one of the strangest things that I've ever heard, and I'll try and find a photo of our friend Lucky Diamond Rich and post him on the @GSMC_Weird News Twitter page and the GSMC Weird News Facebook page as well, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I did find a few photos of him, so I'll post him on both of those if you want to see what he looks like. There are a lot of people who are extremely heavily tattooed, like some of the most tattooed people in the world. And, I don't know, it's just become such a big thing, and I thought this one was interesting because he just wanted more and more and more, and instead of really covering to do more and more, he's more putting more on top of what he had. I don't know, it's a very strange situation. But let's move on to a man called Robbie Koch. Koch. Koch? I don't know. But Robbie broke the record for the most tattoos given in 24 hours at 577 tattoos given. That's a lot. I assume they were little flash tattoos. I noticed that a lot of tattoo shops have competed in this kind of world record for the most tattoos given in 24 hours. I know that there were a few TV shows, whatever Inc., there's like LA Inc., Miami Inc., New York Inc., all that kind of stuff that all did that kind of record thing where they were trying to break the record with most tattoos given in a specific set of hours. So this could be changed by the time that you're listening to this, but this is what I found, is Robbie Koch broke the record for 577 tattoos given in 24 hours. That's a lot of tattoos given in 24 hours. That's an insane amount of tattoos. Like we talked about earlier with the man who did... who has the record for the longest time tattooing, he has got to be so incredibly tired. The same with this guy. He's got to be so tired at this point, just like ready to just conk out and go to sleep. I don't even know. I do feel like it would affect, like I said earlier, it would affect your work being so tired or doing so much, getting, I don't know, hand cramps or whatever. That's a lot of tattoos to do in 1 hour in 24 hours. And you got to be absolutely exhausted. Like, so exhausted. I'm not a tattoo artist. I never was. I never planned to be. And if I was, I could not imagine. I could not imagine somebody tattooing for 24 hours in general, but tattooing 577 tattoos in 24 hours. I don't know. That's a huge number. That's ridiculous. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some more weird tattoo facts.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News podcast. Now, before the break and this entire podcast, we've been talking about weird, tattoo facts. Weird facts about tattoos, all that kind of stuff. Historical weird facts, percentage weird facts, record-breaking weird facts, and let's just keep on with those weird facts. So, before the break, we talked about our most tattooed person, Lucky Diamond Rich. We talked about Robbie Koch, and we talked about some presidents. Now, let's move on to babies. So, apparently, after the Lindbergh baby was kidnapped in 1932, many concerned parents got their babies tattooed just in case. I found this a little strange, but let's move on. Let's talk about commercial tattoo toys. Commercial tattoo toys? Okay. I'm tripping over my words today. I'm losing it. So apparently the first commercial toy to have a tattoo on it was Mattel's Butterfly Art Barbie in 1999. Now, this came out in 1999 and had sticker tattoos that you could put all over Barbie, and parents were furious. They were not a fan of Barbie, our, veterinarian, doctor, space commander, everything, great woman. I don't know. She's like supposed to be the model woman or what have you, having tattoos, and parents were so mad. They ended up taking her off the shelves, and they tried to kind of incorporate tattoos into their toys throughout the years after that, and it was never received well by parents. It was always kind of like, no, I don't want a tattoo on the Barbie for my child. I don't want that kind of thing. And so that was scrapped, and so unfortunately was Butterfly Art Barbie. And I think I assume, and I've seen nowadays, that there are some toys that do have tattoos and whatnot, and that's fine. I just don't think that parents should have gotten so frustrated that Barbie had tattoos. But, it's so sort of well-versed at this point that, people get tattoos, lots of people do, not just, angsty people or people doing bad things. It's kind of everybody gets them now, and I don't know. I think that the tattooed Barbie would do a lot better nowadays, since kind of everybody does it. Let's move on to Massachusetts. So apparently in Massachusetts, they had a ban on tattooing from 1962 to 2000. And this ban came came with a penalty of up to a year in jail or a $300 fine. Now, I think that's a bit much. And also, I'm kind of it's interesting that it started in 1962 and was banned all the way until 2000. Obviously, that's not a thing anymore. It's not 2000. It's 2020. So, but I thought it was interesting that you could get up to a year in jail or a $300 fine for this ban on tattooing that was actually a thing. I don't know. Not a fan of this. Let's move on. Let's move on to apparent painful spots in tattooing. Now, I saw this on a few sites when I was doing my research for weird facts on tattooing, and they say that the ankle, collarbone, chest, ribs, and spine are the most painful spots to get tattooed. Now, I have collarbone and chest tattoos, and they were excruciating. I do not have ankle tattoos or rib or spine tattoos. But I've heard they're bad too. But I'm surprised that on this list, the elbow wasn't included and the armpit wasn't included. Because I've heard that the armpit and the elbow are very, very, very extremely painful. Also, I want to talk about the wrists. So, on the wrist where your pinky is, when you go down right to your wrist, you've got that little nubbin. I don't know what that's called, like your wrist bone or something. I have a tattoo that kind of goes up onto that, and that was excruciating. That was so painful. And I don't know why people aren't saying that. I don't know. Also, just in general, there are a lot of spots. I mean, tattoos hurt. We just need to get over the fact that they don't hurt, and they do. They hurt. Tattoos are painful. That's just how it goes. You sit through the pain to get something beautiful and great. But there are so many spots on the body that are very, very painful. Let's see. Chest is absolutely, I agree with that on the list. I've heard ribs are bad. I don't know personally. And I don't know personally on the spine either. But I've heard that the elbow is excruciating as well as inside the armpit, which I don't have either of. But I can imagine those being super, super painful. Also, I've heard that hand tattoos are excruciating as well. They also don't stay very well, so I don't know. I don't have any hand tattoos, but that's what I've heard. But I've heard that they're really painful. I don't know. I feel like this list is very small, and it's also very to each your own when it comes to stuff. I mean, each of my tattoos hurt in one way or another, either worse or not as bad as some other people I've talked to. I know people who say that this specific part on their body is so, so painful, and they just can't, like, don't do it. And I've had that same part tattooed on me, and it's not as painful as they say. So it's really honestly to each their own when it comes to this. So when you're asking somebody, did this hurt? It's all gonna hurt. Just remember that. That's just how it goes. Everything hurts. It sucks. And that's just how it goes. But let's move on to another fact. Let's move on to a fact about animals. So apparently animals are considered to be the most tattooed theme across history and different cultures, different histories and different cultures. And I 100% see why. This is something, they can mean various things to various people. Animals are very significant in a lot of different ways, and I can see it being, them being tattooed across history and across cultures. I have 3 animals tattooed on me. And, they're special to me in one way or another. And I do know a lot of people who get their animals who've passed or their animals who haven't passed tattooed on them. I've got a cat in my hands now. Look at that. I said the word animal and then behold, there's a cat in my hands. But, I've seen a lot of people who get animals tattooed on them that are their own or ones that they really like or just beautiful, bright colored ones. And I can see animals are very significant to the world in general, and they're very special in a lot of people's hearts. And so I can really see why this is, something like the most tattooed theme across history, and different cultures and all sorts of stuff like that. I don't know. I found this really nice. I love animals, and I do see a lot of animal tattoos out there. I see... Oh god, more cats. She clawed me. Get out of here. I don't want a cat tattoo. Now she just wants attention because I keep talking about animals. But I see a lot of people that have tattoos of animals. I have tattoos of animals, and they are really significant in some ways and special to people in every different ways, especially if it's your own animal. I do not have my own animal tattooed on me anywhere, but these are animals that are significant to me in one way or another. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, let's talk about some of my tattoo experiences and stuff like that.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, and before the break, and this entire podcast, we've been talking about weird facts about tattoos, like weird tattoo facts that you probably didn't know, historical ones, percentage ones, ones about breaking records, all sorts of weird tattoo facts. Now, I thought that I would let you guys know about my tattoo facts. I used to work at a tattoo parlor. I guess you call it a tattoo parlor, a tattoo shop for I did front desk work and stuff like that, cleaning and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't a tattoo artist. I don't want to be a tattoo artist. I didn't want to. I just worked in the front desk. And I saw a lot of weird things. A lot of people would come in and be like, hey, could you just like do this small one for like $10? No, there's a minimum at tattoo shops that is required because of all the stuff that, you know, goes on, all the cleanliness, all the, you know, you're paying for somebody's labor, you're paying for the needles, the machine, all that kind of stuff. So just don't argue with somebody if they're giving you a minimum and it's $75. Like, just don't. Also, I saw a few people who would come in and ask for tattoos with their family members' ashes in it, and I was confused about what that meant, so I talked to one of the artists that worked there, and she had told me that they put a little bit in water and mix that in with the ink. Not a lot, just a tiny little bit, and only a small amount even goes in there. And it's honestly just more of a special moment thing than it is you're tattooing like full-blown ashes into your, you know, skin, which I thought was really kind of nice. And I saw all sorts of stuff when I worked there. And also, let's talk about some weird experiences that I've had. So I did the dumb thing of getting tattoos before I was over the age of 18, which is the age you're legally allowed to get tattoos in the state that I live in. And that was the worst decision. I do not recommend. I was just so anxious. I still have my first tattoo, which is a terrible biohazard symbol, and it doesn't look good at all, but I'm not going to get rid of it or cover it up just because it's a memory for me. But I also had one on the back of my shoulder, and I have one on my stomach that were done in the same day at a friend's house with a tattoo gun they bought on the internet. And I covered up the one on my shoulder, and the one on my stomach is in such a weird space that I just don't have anything to cover it up with, but it's so light too that it's like I forget it's there kind of thing. And I really want to like bring home the fact that if you're not of age legally to get a tattoo, it's okay. Wait, think about it. Please think about it, because I've made that mistake too, even being over the age of 18. I did the stupid thing of getting a matching tattoo with somebody. It wasn't so much the exact same thing, but it was something that if you put it together, it matched up. And that person ended up not being a very good person, and I had to get that covered up with some beautiful art that I absolutely love. And yeah, I I have a lot of cover-ups. I have my shoulder cover-up, the one that's on my arm that I just told you about, and I recently got a very, very large tattoo that I am probably good on getting tattoos for a very long time because it was so large and a lot of pain, and that is my entire chest from shoulder to shoulder. I had a little rose down in the cleavage area that I had gotten at one of those Friday the 13th tattoo events, and it was terrible and very blotchy and gross. And then later on, I ended up getting a tattoo of Spider-Man and what was supposed to be Venom on my chest as well. The Spider-Man looked great, but when I went and got this done, I never got it finished because the guy's gun stopped working halfway through part of the tattoo, and it was just shaky looking and all wonky. So I have an entire chest full of flowers, and I have a fox and some cord that goes through it from shoulder to shoulder, and I'm very happy with how it came out, but it was the most painful thing that I've ever done. Ugh. 10 out of 10, don't recommend. It was the longest tattoo I've ever done. I did 2 sessions, one for outline and one for color, and it was a lot. I have a lot of tattoos. I have feet tattoos, I have a hip tattoo, I have my chest, my back, my arms. They're not full sleeves, but I do have tattoos on both arms, and yeah, it's a lot. And I love them, and they're special to me. They're a special, I don't know, they're just me, and that's what it is, and that's what I love. And I'm not ashamed of getting a tattoo covered up to get something that feels more like myself. And I want to kind of bring that home when it comes to this. Is I really just wanted to tell you guys about my tattoo stuff, so it's okay to, feel the same way. It's okay to not like a tattoo you have, or to have gotten something in just the spur of the moment and want to cover it up. And it's okay to do that. And I really want to bring home the idea of do your research. Do your research when it comes to getting a tattoo. Go look for the people, save the money, pay the money. Save the money, pay the money. Because if you're just looking for something cheap and quick, you're going to get what you paid for. So save your money, spend the good money, find a good artist, find somebody you click with, someone who's really great and that understands your vision and all of that, and do that. Do that. That's all I really wanted to get across when it came to this, was just kind of, tattoos are special for everybody. They're different for everybody. And just make it your own, and don't go cheap. Don't go cheap. Don't do it at home, that kind of stuff. Just think about it. Think about it. I am an advocate for think about it at this point, because I've done too many bad decisions when it came to tattoos, and it took me years to get my chest to a point where I really liked it and I felt nice and feminine and not so weird looking. Just wanted to put that out there, let you guys know about that. If you guys have any tattoos you really like or aren't going to get any tattoos, tweet me. Tweet me at GSMC _weird news and let me know if you don't plan on getting any and why, or if you have some and what they are and if you love them and all kind of stuff like that. Just let me know. Also, let me know if you've heard of any tattoo facts that I haven't heard of or I didn't mention in this specific podcast. I'm always at GSMC_weird news on Twitter and GSMC weird news on Facebook. I'm always there to talk to you guys and see your guys' stuff or, just start a conversation, talk to you. I'm always here for you. Just remember that. For real though, I'm always here to listen to you guys, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this specific podcast or any other podcast that you listen to from me. Like, let me know. I want to know. I want to talk to you guys. I want to know about it. Also, I want to thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble about tattoo facts today and a little bit about my tattoo stuff today. And hit me up on the Twitter, hit me up on the Facebook. I'm always there. If you're looking for something else to listen to, the GSMC Podcast Network has something for everybody. If you like sports, if you like beauty tips, I also do the beauty tip show. So if you like to listen to me and you like beauty stuff, then you can head on over there as well and listen to me. Or there's, they have so many different podcasts on the GSMC Podcast Network. I would just go check out all the stuff they have because I promise you there's something else there for you, not just the weird news. And once again, guys, I want to thank you so much for listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Colleen, and I'll talk to you in the next one.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.